Okay, so you should all know the drill by now. Just go back and listen to all the other parts to get the gist of the weirdness of the diner. If not, here's a brief summary. I work as a waitress at a diner. For the past 6 years, I've encountered a lot of weird things, and I've decided to tell you about them. So I got to the diner 2 hours early, like I said I would in part 7. I found a small dirt trail and walked in the woods. I felt foolish doing it, but La Llorona was still out there, and she drowns kids in rivers. So I took that as an excuse to be brave and walked in the woods. It was oddly quiet. Like I said, there wasn't any wildlife. To be honest, I've never been in the woods before because a lot of creatures come out of the woods. I kept walking, each crack of a branch under my combat boots startling me. "Hey, Autumn!" Jay shouted off in the distance. It made me freeze. Jay wasn't even here, and he would never willingly enter the woods. I continued walking straight ahead, growing anxious with every step I took. I almost jumped when I saw Sasquatch walk by. I continued walking, and after a while, I turned around to head back. I got a few steps in when I heard, "Is there anything you need, Autumn?" It was Leshy. I was relieved to see him. "La Llorona is running around," I told him. Leshy nodded. "Go on." I told him the tea about the incident with La Llorona and that I was a bit worried if there were any campers with children out in the woods, and that Jay almost got stabbed with a butter knife. Leshy was looking apologetically at me after I finished. "I am sorry, Autumn. I promised you protection and I couldn't even hold up on my word." I shrugged. "It's fine. You can't be there 24/7.
"To make up for it, I'll send you 3 of my best watchers," said Leshy. "They'll be in the trees watching. If something happens, they'll alert me."
He did a high-pitched whistle, and to his right, 2 gray and white wolves emerged from the trees. They were looking at me like they were interested. I know they're not the werewolves that lurk outside the diner. "Where's the 3rd watcher?" I asked.
"The 3rd one is Sasquatch," Leshy said. "I know you're already acquainted with him."
"He's a watcher?" I asked.
"He is now," said Leshy. "I will look for La Llorona for you."
"Thank you," I said. He led me and the wolves to where the diner was. I thanked him again, and he smiled at me before leaving. After that was taken care of, I waited until Jay and Loretta appeared, which took about an hour. I had been in the woods for an hour. It was unsettling seeing the 2 wolves lurk about, staring at me or the diner among the trees. After Jay and Loretta arrived, we went inside the diner together because I was explaining to them about my conversation with Leshy and that we now had 2 wolves and Sasquatch watching over us. Jay and I had cut out the bottom part of an empty gallon of milk to fill it with water to give to the wolves, and we did give some meat to them just in case they got hungry. Okay, so if anyone remembers, in part 2, I said that our previous cook, Doug, had retired. By that, I mean that he had been carted off by a rainbird. Well, he returned looking a bit different. It was around 2 in the morning when we got our customer, so Jay and I go up to greet them. Our customer was a teenage boy wearing baggy clothing. "Hi, welcome," I greeted him. The boy looked exhausted and thin. "Hi, Autumn and Jay," he greeted us. "Well, you can sit anywhere you like," Jay said. Jay and I looked at each other. I was wondering what kind of creature this teenage boy could be. I looked at the teen. "Why are you looking at me like you don't recognize me?" asked the teen. Maybe this kid was hitting alcohol pretty hard. Jay and I looked at each other again. "Why should we?" I asked. "I'm Doug," said the teen. "We worked together for 4 years." Okay, how he knew that we worked with Doug for 4 years was a little unnerving. And now that I looked closely, I did recognize the uniform he wore matched ours. But Doug was a 28-year-old man with a wife and a son. This kid was probably around 14 to 16 years old. "Doug disappeared 3 months ago," I said. "You mean that I got kidnapped by a rainbird?" said the teen. Okay, considering that Matt, Jay, and I were the only ones that knew that Doug had gotten kidnapped by a rainbird, this teen was Doug. Prove it by saying something that only the both of us know, said Jay. Doug looked at Jay. When you first started working here, you told me that you had a crush on Autumn. I looked at Jay. You did? Jay looked embarrassed. It was a small one. I looked at Doug. You tripped and fell when you saw the griffin for the first time, Doug said, and flashed to Jay and I. Ah, shoot. I knew I should have worn leggings under my skirt that night, but for some reason I decided to forego the hassle of putting them on. Jay and I looked at Doug. Doug? We asked at the same time. Doug backed up. Why are you shocked that I'm still alive? I grabbed Doug's arm and dragged him to a mirror knickknack that we hung up on the wall. I placed him in front of it. Doug looked at it and promptly passed out. Jay and I exchanged looks again. How did Doug go back to his teenage self? Where exactly would he stay since he's supposed to be 28? I can't have a teenage boy living in my apartment. I'm sure Craig wouldn't allow Jay to bring home a teenager. That would be highly suspicious. This is a disaster. Anyway, we managed to get Doug to wake up, and Loretta brought him a cup of water. Doug, get this. Doug looks at her and goes, "And who are you?" "I'm Loretta. I'm the replacement cook." Doug groaned. "I've been gone for who knows how long, and I've been replaced?" "Well, you've been gone for 3 months," I said. Doug goes, "It could have been worse. It could have been 30 years or 300 years. "Well, what happened to you?" asked Jay. Doug shrugged. "Wish I knew. I remember being flown in the air, a bright flash of light, and then I'm waking up in the woods and seeing the diner." "Maybe you got hit by the fountain of youth," joked Jay. "Ugh, but did it have to turn me into a teen? My teen years were hell," said Doug. "Maybe Leshy knows some witches or wizards or sorcerers," said Loretta. "To reverse it." "Oh, that's a great idea," said Jay. "But where am I supposed to stay?" asked Doug. "I can't go home. I know that none of you want to take me in. I guess living under a bridge shouldn't be horrible." "I'm sure Matt would take you in and give you a job here," said Jay. I nodded. "Yeah, Matt's a good guy. He won't just let you live under a bridge." Doug nodded and looked out the window while he played with his wedding ring. "Do you want anything to eat?" Loretta asked. "Yeah, I guess a hamburger won't hurt," said Doug. "In that case, I'll call Matt and tell him," said Jay. "And I'll figure out what to do if Matt won't let Doug stay with him," I said. Jay and Loretta got up to their respective chores. I don't know what to do with Doug. If Matt didn't want to take him in, I don't know where Doug would go. It would be super weird if he stayed with one of us. Jay and I could probably pass him off as a relative, but Jay doesn't have any cousins, nieces, or nephews. I guess I could have him stay with me if Matt didn't take him in. And there was no way I was going to let him live under a bridge. But I will ask Leshy if he knows anyone with magic that can restore Doug to his normal age.